welcome to my first journal club streaming. So the aim of this is to keep me up to date with the literature, but also share it with you. So I'll be picking a paper, ideally, assuming this works out for me and you guys, every week, potentially every 2 weeks. We'll see how we're going. And what we'll do is we'll just read through it and discuss it on stream, essentially. I'm finding it quite boring and lonely reading papers by myself, and I'm just not motivated. So I thought, why not, open it up and share it with you guys, and hopefully, we can both learn something. So today's article that we'll be looking at looks at insects that lay their eggs and eat plants. So yeah, it's called, as you can see on the screen, Differences in the Fruit Maturation Stages at which Oviposition, which is egg laying, occurs among insect seed predators feeding on fruits of 5 dipterocarp trees. Dipterocarp tree species, yep. So this paper was published in 2018, so it's fairly recent still. And yeah, I haven't really read it. I have just sort of skimmed over the abstract and I'm like, oh, that sort of seems interesting. And it's sort of relevant to a project that I'm starting at the moment in the field, which is one of the trees, my focal species of tree, Nothofagus, is flowering this year. It's one of those trees that only flowers every 3 or 4 years. So it's flowering this year, and about 3 years ago, when I first noticed this, we found little larvae inside some of the flowers, and in the fruits it produced a few months later, we found evidence of insect predation with little boreholes coming, out of the fruit or going into. We're not sure. So yeah, I thought I'd do some reading up just to, get back on top of the literature and prepare myself for, observations that I might make in the near future. So this article is not based on in Australia, but it's still relevant because, there's insects feeding at the canopy level. Like some trees are like that tall, you can't collect live samples. So insect feeding at the canopy level and, oviposition or anything at that level is not overly researched just because it's not practical. We can't send people climbing up the trees because a lot of these old trees, they're not that stable and they're not safe to climb. And yeah, how we get fresh samples down is we just hope that, there's a wind and it blows some down. But other than that, we can't collect fresh samples until, it's just some of the flowers or fruits fall down. And by that stage, usually the insects have come out. So it is a bit under-researched in this area, but I want to make sure that I have, looked at everyone's work before I, go into my own research, because in case, this has been done somewhere, which I haven't been able to find yet, but yeah, just in case, you don't want to copy anyone else's work. So that's a bit of an intro into what it is, and I've got a little, a Google Doc open so we can make notes. And I've got the article, hopefully you can see that. I'm just going to copy and paste the title over. And I do not need those numbers. I'll keep the authors there because that's important. So I know what paper it's actually talking about. Let's get rid of these numbers. There we go. Nope, there's another one. Okay. And I'll just put the year. Oh yes, I have actually unmuted it. That's amazing for me. It's pretty cold here at the moment, so I've put the heater on, but I'm still pretty cold right now, but I might take this off. I've just got it on loosely because it's hot with it on, but then it's cool without it on, so yeah. Anyway, back to topic. So yeah, I guess we'll just read through it. Hopefully you can see that on screen. And yeah, we'll see how we go. So I'll read it out loud That way, if you can't see it properly, you can hear what I'm saying. I apologise in advance for any mispronunciations. There are some scientific names in here that I probably am pronouncing wrong. They never really taught us how to speak Latin or anything in school here, so yeah, so we'll read the abstract, which is sort of just a little short summary about the whole entire paper. We'll read that, and then we'll just go through it in the normal order of how the paper's presented. So, the seeds of dipterocarp trees. Okay, firstly, dipterocarp trees, that was in the title. Dipterocarp trees, I looked this up earlier, is a tall forest tree from which are obtained resins and timber for the export trade. Okay, so it's a tall tree, essentially, and it occurs mainly in Southeast Asia. So I guess that'll be our first note, because I don't want to have to go back and look at what the hell's a dipterocarp tree over and over again. Now, can you do bullet points? Yes, nice. Dipterocarp. I don't really care if I do spelling mistakes. So, a tall forest tree in Southeast Asia. Sorry if you hear a lot of keyboard tapping. The keyboard and the mic are sort of really close together. I've got to figure out a better way to position these things, but we'll see how it goes for now. So we've looked up this word, dipterocarp. I won't bother highlighting it because it's not an important fact, it's just a name of a tree. So the seeds of these trees are the main food resources for many species of weevils, beetles, moths. However, for most seed-eating insects on dipterocarp tropical trees, seeds utilization patterns remain poorly investigated. Yeah, so basically what I was saying before, there's not a lot of research into this kind of relationship between insects and plants. So let me just, okay. I'll just highlight these, just so we know what kind of insects they might be talking about later on. So this study aims to determine the fruit maturation stage, so that's fairly self-explanatory, at which eggs are laid by different insect seed predators, feeding on the seeds or fruits of the following 5 species. So we've got our 5 species there. I'm just going to copy them over, just in case there is a difference between any of them. And we'll italicize that, because we want it presented, the notes good, so we can recognize their names. So looking at these species, which reproduced during the same period, so which means these plants produced fruit and seed during this period of the study. We investigated the occurrence frequencies of the insect seed predators at various growth stages by collecting both unfallen and fallen fruit on several occasions during the period of seed/fruit maturation in the tropical rainforest in Borneo from September to December in 2013. Okay, so the study's only done in 1 year, so that's 1 season only. And I might just turn a light on because I'm just finding it a bit hard to focus on things. There we go. Okay, so they collected both unfallen and fallen fruit. That's interesting. So I wonder how they collected the unfallen fruit. We will have to have a look in the methods. September to December 2013. Because, yeah, if there's a method that maybe I can adapt for my own project, that would be really cool. So weevils and bark beetles were the most dominant insect seed predators in the 5 trees. There were a couple of weevil species, blah and blah, that preyed upon the seeds of each of these 5 species, and 1 bark beetle species preyed upon the seeds of all of the species. Okay, there were many larvae, pupae, and adults of each weevil species that were found in predispersal unfallen fruit. Now that's an important line. Let's highlight that. because that's what I've found last time, was a whole lot of larvae in fruit that, not fruit, sorry, flowers, in the male flowers. And because of the wind, these male flowers, like they're smaller than my fingernails. So maybe like half the size of my pinky fingernail that you probably can't even see. The end of a pencil, perhaps. Yeah. Yes. So they're pretty small, but at that stage you can't really identify them unless you grow them up. So I'm hoping to get some live samples and maybe grow them up this time, not knowing, you know, what type of invertebrate they are. They could be beetles, wasps, weevils, whatever else they mentioned in here. Moths, I said that maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I'm not sure how to rear them, so I guess I'll just have to try, you know, rearing conditions for a few different species. We'll see how they go. But yeah, they're really small, and yeah, we collected the flowers only because there was wind and the flowers would fall to the ground. But also there's a few parrots in the ecosystem that I'm working in that actually like to chew on branches and things, and so some of the little twigs fell down with flowers still on them, so that was handy as well. So yeah, that was pre-dispersal, because there was a lot of pollen still in the flowers, so it was pre-dispersal. So the bark beetles were at various growth stages and found in post-dispersal, so the fallen fruit. Let's grab that one as well. Whoops. And we'll highlight that. So these results suggested that among the dominant insect seed predators of the 5 dipterocarp species, weevil species oviposit on predispersal fruit and begin their larval growth before seed dispersal, whereas the oviposition and larval development of bark beetle species occurs post-fruit dispersal. So again, that's basically the main result that this paper is trying to point out to us. It's the, oops, that's, I did not copy that. It's the final line, final sentence basically of, there we go, the abstract. So that's the main point that they want to point out. But because we're interested in learning a bit more, we will go through the paper properly. Yeah. Okay, so the introductions, for those of you who are not familiar with scientific paper, it's generally sort of a short literature review, but it also introduces the hypothesis and the questions that this study aims to answer. So tropical rainforests have extremely high insect diversity, and it's got the references there. So all these names and years is a reference to other papers that support that sentence. So all these guys, Irwin, Stork and Wilson, have done research into insect diversity in rainforests. So the environmental factors and ecological mechanisms that enable an assemblage of insect species to coexist and share the same resources through the niche differentiation can better be understood through the spatio-temporal patterns in resource utilization of component species. Okay, that's not even the whole sentence, and that's a long sentence. But spatio-temporal, that just refers to in space and time. So at different times and different spaces, there's different patterns of what the insects are doing. So there might be more adult insects at this particular time in this particular place. Whereas at this time, so like comparing summer to winter, there's probably going to be less insects at this time, and yeah. If you don't understand, just type a question in the chat, go ahead. Or in the comments below, because I'm probably going to publish this on the YouTubes. We'll see. These should be explored in relation to the heterogeneity of resource conditions and interspecific interactions. So heterogeneity, hetero just means different. So homo is the same, hetero is different. So we're looking at different species, different genuses, and things like that. And resources, so just things you use. So it could be water, nutrients, so oxygen, food, stuff like that. and interspecific, so that's just interspecies interactions, so between one species and another. I'm just going to have to answer my phone, so give me a moment. I'll put you on mute. And we're back. Sorry about that. So where are we up to? We've basically just finished the first paragraph, which isn't much. This is probably going to go a lot longer than I planned. Okay, assemblages of seed-eating insects have considerable influence on the reproduction of plant species and the structure of the food web in forest ecosystems. I think I've read some papers by Jansen, but I'll copy that and the references over so I can look at these papers and refer to them again if I need to. Oh, I hate how it's copying like that. That is very annoying. I hope this is just going to be me editing my notes document so it doesn't drive me bonkers when I go over it. So that would be good. That kind of stuff and referring to those papers would be good if I was writing my own intro or something into this, my own lit review. So furthermore, diverse species from various insect taxa have evolved to prey on plant seeds as their main food in tropical forests. To date, various insect seed predators, including many species of weevils, bark beetles, and small moths, have been shown to prey on the seeds of the dipterocarp pronunciation, yep. So, which is one of the most dominant plant families in the tropical rainforest of Southeast Asia. Okay, so that's one of the dominant trees. My tree in my system is also one of my dominant trees. It's the dominant tree in this particular forest. So I'm just going to note that there. Oh, I might grab this person just in case. There we go. Although these insect species often share the seeds of a tree, few studies have investigated the detailed interspecific differences in resource, so the seeds, the resources in this case, utilization patterns by insect seed predators, preying upon dipterocarp species. Furthermore, knowledge remains limited about how many multiple species in an assemblage of insect seed predators differentiate their seed utilization patterns of dipterocarp trees with reference to the heterogeneity of resource conditions. So looking at the differences in resources might change how the insects actually use the resource, which is the seeds. So like many other plants, dipterocarp trees have evolved various seed and fruit traits to defend their seeds from insect seed predators. For example, they defend their seeds by synthesizing and possessing secondary metabolites such as tannin and other toxic chemicals, and or physically defending their seeds by developing thicker and harder fruit walls. I haven't looked at any of the chemicals in mine, but they do have sort of a more harder fruit wall to protect their seeds. But I still found lots of insect predation, so something to look into. The strengths of chemical and physical defense Whoop, I just lost my place. There we go. The strengths of chemical and physical defenses against seed predators are expected to change along with the maturation of fruit and seeds. Okay, so depending on their association with the mother tree and seed maturation stages in terms of size and chemical content. Okay, so seed predators and their defenses change over time, basically. So, for example, there's a possibility that the chemical defenses of seeds are weakened after they have fallen from the mother tree because any chemical defense that had been enhanced through the induced plant responses of the mother trees are no longer supplied. That's an interesting point, because they're not connected to the mother anymore. Just highlight that. Conversely, in the nut type of fruit, physical strength is considered to be weaker at the immature stages than at the mature stages because retardation of the hardening of the seed and fruit structures is required for growth of seed and fruit. Okay, so it's weaker at immature stages. Let's just take note of that as well. In addition, the microenvironmental conditions in the forest canopy for predispersal seeds are inferred to be significantly different from those post-dispersal seeds laying on the ground. So, yeah, pretty much. It's a completely different environment up, 25 metres in the canopy attached to your parent tree than laying on the floor in the leaf litter where it's dark, there's little sunlight, there's possibly more moisture from the ground. So that's just another important factor to remember when looking at these things. So these factors might influence patterns of seed utilization by each species of insect predator. You get different insects living in the canopy than you do on the forest floor, basically. Hosaka et al. Investigated the relationships between the species composition of insect seed predators and the maturation process of dispersed dipterocarp seeds. Okay, so someone else has done a study into this, which would be interesting. Let's just take note of that, and I can look that up later. Oh my gosh, so annoying. Why does it copy these stupid things like that? Okay, so however, there's still limited knowledge basically about how the species composition of insect seed predators changes with the maturation process of predispersal seeds in forest canopies. Yep. So even in 2018, these guys that wrote this article couldn't find a lot into the same thing that I'm asking questions about. It's just in a different forest basically. So furthermore, information is lacking about how the composition of different insect seed predators varies before and after seed dispersal. In this study, we repeatedly sample unfallen seeds from the forest canopy and seeds that have fallen on the ground. I really need to figure out a way to get flowers and seeds that haven't fallen on the ground. But these trees that are producing these reproductive structures are that old and often very hollow, so it's very unsafe for experienced climbers to climb up there. And the canopy is so thick that you couldn't really, see where a drone was coming from properly. There's no reception in my rainforest. Yeah, maybe, I don't know, get someone to shoot a branch off, but then it'll just get caught in the thick canopy. But we'll see how this paper does it. And yeah, still trying to figure out how I can apply this to my own system. So they've looked at both samples on the ground and up in the tree. So the seeds that were immature before dispersal and the stage at which the seeds matured that had been dispersed for the 5 species. So they aimed to identify differences in the species composition of insect seed predators at 4 different fruit maturation stages. Okay, so this is important. So we looked at predispersal immature, predispersal mature, post-dispersal immature, and post-dispersal mature stages. So that's what I've been collecting, is post-dispersal and immature and mature stages. Based on the data of insect seed predators that were collected by dissecting the sampled seeds, we analysed the differences in the fruit maturation stages at which oviposition occurs among insect seed predators preying on the seeds and fruit of the 5 tree species, with particular focus on the degree of seed maturation I did some work into that for my species, and on the association of seeds to their mother trees. So, because I had to change my whole project because when I was doing my master's, because it's only supposed to be a 9-month project. Originally I was looking at something like this, but because I didn't have enough data, because I only had one masting season, so one lot of flowers, samples from one season, I could only, nothing to compare it to, not enough data basically. But yeah, I dissected some of the seeds and looked at how mature they were inside. So I do have a little bit of data on this. Okay, we don't really need to know too much about the study site. So lowland forests basically in Borneo, September to December. Seasonal trends, a bit on that. Approximately 26 degrees. How much rain? 2,600 millimeters. So this is very specific to their forest. So what's this? Target tree species and insect seed predators. So the target species were mainly preyed upon weevils, beetles and moths. We've already said that. Then we've got the dominant predator species of weevils, etc. We've got seed predation by nanophids. What's a nanophid? Let's quickly just look that up. It's like a tiny aphid or something. Okay, Google does not know what it is. In the Northern Hemisphere, nanophid adults are shredders of organic matter, usually wood. Okay, it's a type of weevil. It's a nanophid weevil. Okay, it's just a type of weevil. That's all. So it's distinguishable from other species based on feeding marks. So I haven't done, all the feeding marks look pretty similar with mine. There's maybe, I could distinguish between 2 different types of feeding types, but I wouldn't have a clue which inverts were doing that. So in nanophyte species, an adult female lays an eggs in the host dipterocarp seed at the pedicle side of the cotyloidon inside the fruit. That's interesting. I can look that up. It's got a bit more detail about which insects are laying where and when, etc. So the oviposition patterns of damnuk species is similar to that of nanophytes. A nanophid larva requires about half of a matured seed of the host species for pupation. The adult emerges from its host fruit at eclosion. Let me just get the proper... Yeah, I had little exit holes, circular exit holes of about that size. Let me get the proper definition of this word. In English, perhaps? Hatchling. So basically when it hatches. So... Okay. And they leave a... So it might be some sort of aphid that I have. Who knows? But then lots of insects probably leave, you know, a couple of millimeter diameter holes in whatever they're in. Coming from. Let's highlight that one too. Conversely, an adult female of Alcidodes species lays an egg anywhere near the cotyloidon inside the fruit. Okay, so this species just does whatever. Again, which could be important. I mean, we won't have the exact same species. Oops. In Australia, in a cool temperate rainforest, but it's important to know how many different strategies there are just in even this one forest or whatever. So this larvae needs at least 3/4 of a matured seed for pupation. Furthermore, it emerges from its host from a circular hole about 5 millimeters in diameter. Okay, so different species, different hole size, that makes sense. I'm just going to put that there as a reminder. So the dominant bark beetle species preying was Cocotripes, that's how I'm pronouncing it, found excavating tunnels inside the fruit. Okay, so these guys would excavate tunnels inside the fruit and then lay their eggs. The larvae assumed to feed on the seed and part of the fruit. Okay, let's just different bugs lay in different places and have different exit holes. Let's sum that up so it's a bit different. We'll keep that there because it's got the reference. I want that. Different bugs. It was aphids, I think, was the first one. So this one is looking at bark beetles. So excavating tunnels and laying eggs in them, basically. Larvae assumed to feed on seed. Yeah, that's what we're assuming with mine as well. So then it pupates inside the tunnels and more than 10 adults emerge from a single host fruit. Okay. Moths. What do moths have to do? Moths prey on the seeds belonging to blah and blah. All species of moths lay an egg in a host fruit. Okay, larvae mainly feed on the cotyloidon and the pupate inside the host fruit. Okay, moths lay eggs in fruit, feed on cotyloidon, I can't spell, after the adults emerge. Okay, so that's just a bit of history of the different bugs. Okay, so yeah, we've got little fruits like this. So they look like the seeds, but actually they're the fruits of my tree anyway. What does it say it is here? F. Feeding on a something seed, yeah, but inside is the seed. And then we normally find a little borehole coming out of that. That's what I found in my research. Sample collection, this is what I want. So in most of the species, community level masting. So these trees are masting species as well. Let's take note of that. Okay, more than 80% of the organs fall from the mother tree before they reach maturity, probably because of abortion. Yeah, there's a lot of that happens. There's a lot of immature seeds I've found as well. So let's take that. Oof, my head hurts a bit. That's referring to the similar paper, same paper by the looks of it. So I put it there twice and I'll know, okay, that's a good paper to look at that sort of stuff. So the reproductive organs that fell during 1 month after the flowering period were rarely attacked. Okay. So this whole section is actually quite interesting. So rarely attacked by insect seed predators because they had undeveloped seeds. Fair enough. The following 1 month period after the end of flowering until end of fruit dispersal, they sampled the fallen fruits of each target tree from the forest floor at intervals of 1 to 2 weeks. Because my field site is 6 hours away from Sydney, it costs like $500 for a trip there and back just on the vehicle alone, and being a scientist, of course, there's limited money for these sorts of things and grants run out. So I don't think I can sample that much, unfortunately. Monthly, that's what we're going to stick to, I think. However, they did not undertake sampling during the following periods. because of labour shortages. Okay, so they took that into consideration and talked about that. They randomly collected fruits. Yep. The number of appropriate fruits collected as many within a 20-metre radius. Okay. At each sampling event, an additional fruit fallen on the ground. We sampled unfallen fruit from randomly chose places at the crown of each tree. Canopy crane. Okay, so they used the canopy crane. I don't think that's possible because you can't get any crane sort of thing in my forest, unfortunately. Okay, that's how many fruits they collected. They measured the diameters of the fruits. Yep. Small, immature, large, mature. Yep. Okay, we've got stuff in table 1 of how many we actually sampled. They dissected most of the samples as well to detect if there's an insect inside. We kept remaining sampled fruits in plastic boxes to obtain voucher specimens to identify the species. Voucher specimens. I'm not sure what that means, but does that mean they kept some in case they grew up, matured, the bugs? We'll see. I should stop referring to them as bugs because bugs is a particular type of invertebrate, but anyway. Based on the morphological characteristics of insects at growth stages and feeding marks, hole shapes, spaces, blah blah blah, growth stages, they classified insect seed predators into those that had remained inside the fruits, those that had caused damage to seeds and fruits, and those that finished feeding on the contents of fruits and left the outer parts after adult eclosion, which is hatching, and those that emerged from the fruits. Okay, so they classified it into a lot of different things, basically. Then we've got the beetles, so they used that as a guide. That's a lot of fruits there. How many they sampled. Mortality of seeds due to predation, okay. They compared sequences. Okay. So, data analysis, they calculated percentages. Yep. I don't think we need to go over the stats right now. Okay, they just used some basic ANOVAs by the looks of it. Okay, results. We'll sort of skim over the results and then we'll read the discussion a bit better, I think. So they collected over 4,000 fruits, unfallen fruits, and almost 4,000 fallen fruits. That's quite a bit. The signs of seed predation, etc. The percentage of fruits damaged by seed-eating insects was significantly lower in unfallen fruits than the fallen ones. We'll take that line. We'll just check that in there. So all the seed-eating insects collected from all the collected fruits, approximately 1/4 were weevils. Okay. Okay, there are at 5 species present, roughly half were bark beetles, and almost all belong to one species. Okay, and there's a little bit of moths from various families. Okay, and they've got listed them in the appendix. Okay, weevils. Percentage of seed predation by insects. Weevils preyed on both. The effects of fruit connectedness and fruit size and the interaction effect of the two factors on the percentage of seeds damaged by weevils were significant for for that species. They were higher in larger and fallen fruits. Okay. Contrast, only fruit connectedness showed a significant effect on the percentage of seeds damaged by weevils for blah, and the effect was higher on fallen fruits. Okay, so you can find a lot of different answers. Okay, we used an ANOVA for this. Okay, comparison, significantly lower in larger fruits than smaller ones for that species. So there's differences between species. Okay, effect of fruit connectedness. Yep. Bark beetles were found in fallen fruits. Okay, let's move down. Let's have some water. Okay, and then higher and large fruits, yep, that's just all differences. I can go through that properly later when I have results from my own study, which won't be for a little while anyway. But this could be a good reference paper for me. So growth stages of insect seed predators. Weevils were at various growth stages. In unfallen and fallen fruits. Larvae, most common stage. Okay, the eggs were laid in holes, thought to be dug into host fruit by adult females. Yep. Okay, that's like where it is on the seeds, or the fruit they're laying. Eggs found in both. Okay. Okay, so adults and debris when the adults were hatching were only found in the fallen fruits. Yep. Adults were found in both. Okay, but fallen fruits more. Yep. Okay, for each target tree species, irrespective of fruit size, more than half the bark beetles that were collected were ovipositing. My pronunciation is great. Adult females. It's also a female stage, yep. No adult of the new generation might have grown and fallen in the fruits found. Okay, so they're all adults from one generation. So none of them matured and stayed there. They probably dispersed once they matured. Okay, we'll read the discussion through properly. We've got 45 minutes. This study showed that for the five tree species, weevil and bark beetle seed predators shared the seeds of the same tree species, but attacked the seeds at different stages of fruit maturation. That is a main point. Why does it do that? It's not really good practice just copying paragraphs and putting them into your notes. So I suggest you don't do it. Do what I say, not what I do kind of thing. Because that's how you can get stuck with copyright. But as I'm just trying to do this roughly and within a certain amount of time online, this is how I'm doing it. So for instance, weevil larvae fed on both unfallen fruits in the canopy and fallen fruits on the ground, whereas most bark beetle larvae were found in the fallen fruits. In addition, the growth stages of weevils and bark beetles in unfallen and fallen fruits suggest that almost all of the weevil seed predator species start their life cycles in immature fruits before they fall from the forest canopy. So most of them actually start the cycle before they fall. Let's highlight that. And we'll sheet that over here for now as well. Okay, so in comparison, bark beetles start their life cycles in fruits that had fallen on the ground. Okay, so that happens. So yeah, what I'm finding would be hard to distinguish because I'm only collecting the fruits and flowers that have already fallen on the ground because we haven't found a safe way to actually collect them from the canopy yet. Okay, we've got some nice little graphs. So we've got the different tree species up there, fruit size, small and large. Percentage of the seed damaged by, okay, this is by the bark beetle. So more were damaged in large fruits. That's what it's looking like. Okay, this is the different stages of what the insects were at. So we've got egg, larvae, pupae, adult. Yeah, and then the different size fruits. So the large ones had more older ones, and the younger one had more larvae. Although in this species, it's just larvae everywhere. And this one as well. Oh, and this one, that's just 100% larvae in both. So, yeah, it's different among species, which would be expected, I guess. Proportions of individuals at different growth stages. Okay, so we get a lot of... Okay, so similar kind of thing as the one above. Except we've got the adult females laying the eggs. A lot of them. And then larvae again, looks like the most next. There's a few eggs over there. Okay, what's all this about? Although weevil species seem to have their own characteristics with respect to the timing of oviposition and larval growth in relation to seed and fruit status, all species seem to lay eggs on predispersal fruits. On them, not in. They say on, not in. That's interesting. On predispersal fruits in the canopy and start their larval growth before the fruits fall. That's basically what I looked at before, isn't it? Yeah, they start their life cycles before the fruits have fallen on the ground. That's the same as what they said before. This trait was also observed for other weevil species that feed on the seeds of dipterocarp species in the Southeast Asian tropics. Okay. The seeds of many species have weaker chemical defences after falling because they no longer receive the induced plant response from their mother. Yep, they said that in the intro. In fact, we observed that fallen fruits contained less latex than unfallen fruits at the same maturation stage. That's an interesting little point. Oh, it's personal obs though. Let's just highlight that for now. Therefore, the weevils that prey on unfallen dipterocarp fruits may need to develop particular characteristics to overcome the defences of host plants. Okay, so the weevils have possibly developed characteristics to overcome these issues with some associated fitness cost. Yep. However, weevil species that have evolved tolerance to such plant chemical defences can feed on host seeds in the canopy without interference by other seed-eating insects that do not possess such characteristics. So it's an advantage over one insect if they have the ability to put up with this chemical or not. In addition to the merits of such competitive free space in the host seeds that are connected to the mother trees in the canopy, unfallen fruits might also have abundant nutrients because of the nutrients additionally supplied by the mother tree. I'll put a little highlight on that for now. Thus, the weevils might benefit from one or both of these advantages by starting their larval growth before the fruits are dispersed. So weevils benefit. Okay. Okay, so we'll just go here. However, because of these specialised adaptive characteristics to overcome particular defence mechanisms of their own individual host plant species, the range of plant species available to a particular weevil species might be limited. Although our results suggest that most individuals of target weevils started their larval growth in unfallen fruits, a small number of eggs were found in the fallen fruits. So I'm wondering how small the eggs are, because most of the samples I collected, it was heavy rain, so a lot of my samples were actually quite decayed by the time I got them, because I can only get up there once a month at most. Just having it sit there in the litter trap for so long, it was decaying. It sped up the decaying process. So any insects that were in there could have hatched or just perished. So, okay. So this suggests that weevil species might oviposit on both unfallen and fallen fruits. It needs to be assessed by intensive observation and experiments. Okay. So the Cocotripes is a type of beetle, I think. Yep, beetle collected from tree species. Bark beetles that fed on dead plant tissues often have the ability to use various plant and species as host plants. Of dipterocarp seeds are considered to be weaker in fallen fruits than in unfallen fruits. Feeding seeds in fallen fruits with weaker chemical defenses between the weevil and the beetles. Okay. Bark beetles were more frequently detected in larger fruits for all target tree species, even though significant differences in call mechanism processes. Let's just put a little thing on that. One is the preference of bark beetles for and they have a preference for large fruits. Because an adult female of a bark beetle usually lays multiple eggs in a fruit, more offspring are likely to grow in larger feeding month when adult bark beetles from the new, so this next coming generation, emerge from the smaller seeds that had fallen during the earlier period. Feed on the unfallen fruits of this species, itchy nose, during the early stage of seed maturation. Okay, there's two fruits at early stages. I'll just highlight that for now. And found in this particular species. Although the reason for this discrepancy between these two species cannot be specified, suggested to share life history traits in which they started larval growth in unfallen mature trees in the forest canopy, the effects of fruit connectedness and fruit